Minnesota. Manufactured housing and the financing of resident-owned communities really is an innovation in the field, and it's also a means to create and preserve communities where families can flourish. So in a very short time frame, North Country has helped establish 5 resident-owned communities in Minnesota serving 420 households and established a mechanism to advance the security and livability of ROCs throughout our state.
All right, so what is it about manufactured housing that's important, right? Well, the first thing is that it is the largest unsubsidized affordable housing stock in the country. And that's really important when you think about manufactured housing housing 8.6 million families who earn an average of $29,000 a year. In almost every market in the country, that would put them at about 50% or 60% of the median income for the area, which would make it very deeply affordable housing in most markets. If we compare that to the rest of the country, so we have 8.6 million families in manufactured housing units. In the U.S. now, we have 2.5 million units that were built using the low-income housing tax credit, which is the best deeply subsidized rental housing in the country. We have about 2 million portable Section 8 vouchers, and we have about 1.2 million homes in public housing, which sums to about 5.7 million units. So now you compare it. 8.6 million units of manufactured housing, 5.7 million units of deeply subsidized housing. And you see that this is actually a stock that we can't afford to ignore.
CFED comes to this out of the perspective of asset building. And many of you who know CFED know us because of our work building the field of match savings, children's savings, and microenterprise development. But when we were presented very much with the statistics that Matt shared in terms of the number of people who live in manufactured housing, how it was the major source of unsubsidized affordable housing in the United States, and that basically in an area where for people in site-built homes, they had an incredibly efficient financial market, the last 2 or 3 years accepted, and all the rules in the industry for manufactured housing were upside down. And the task that CFPB was given was to think through, as Max said, what are all the pieces that we have to change so we can turn manufactured housing into an appreciating asset and a source of economic security. And that's really where CFPB came in. But that has been the strategy and the 4 prongs that you described, which is new and replacement development, resident ownership, policy change, and financing. It's a commitment to really making sure manufactured housing and the homeowners in manufactured housing has the same benefits as the owners of site-built housing, and we preserve this stock is more urgent than ever.
It's because this strategy serves a community need, serves a homeowner need, a homeowner desire for basic economic security. When you own a home on rented land, you live with that insecurity that this can be taken out from underneath me. And it's what draws communities together, why community leaders step up and take on the awesome responsibility that they do in order to gain economic security. And it's very inspiring. Just buying the community alone doesn't do it. We've learned, and it's why you see the strategy going deeper. It's about public health and public safety. That investments in water and sewer and electrical systems is so important because this is aging infrastructure that needs investment of that sort. In terms of civic engagement, we go deeper than simply empowering the board of directors and patting them on the back at the closing and saying good luck. It's why in New Hampshire today, for instance, when a community leader participates in the community leadership program, they earn college credits. They earn college credits for participating in a co-op leadership program designed and implemented by the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. This past weekend here in Minnesota, North Country Cooperative Foundation hosted their first Community Leadership Institute for community leaders here in Minnesota. Hopefully we'll talk about that a little later. Single-family financing. Clearly, as Matt noted, step-by-step work to leverage in decent single-family financing has paid huge dividends and is a segment of the work that has its own expertise, its own capital needs and challenges, but critically important. And ultimately, healthy homes. Our work, and this is on the front edge of the work, but clearly our ability to leverage in the resources to help homeowners make that additional investment in their home and neighborhood by replacing their old home with a new home and enjoying energy savings and healthier lives as a result. It's this systems approach over the long term that makes these safe, secure, affordable, and get this, small home communities.
The statistics for 2009 is that for families under $50,000 in income in Minnesota, 57% of households are cost burdened.
Minnesota Housing, I think, has a pretty good track record over the years of really going to where the opportunity is and going to where it's possible to leverage the national capital markets, national foundations, and to really bring maybe more than our share of the dollars into the state by being willing to be innovative and to, most importantly, work with partners. And so I really applaud all of you here who've had a role in making Rock USA a really stellar partner in bringing capital to manufactured housing.
But for NCF, the best thing we've learned is how important it is and how wonderful it is to work with inspiring community leaders like the folks that are going to be on our panel tonight. So I asked a couple of folks to come and join me and let me pepper them with just a couple of questions about what resident ownership is. So Betty, I'm going to start with you. We're going to ask just a couple of questions to try to get a sense for what resident ownership means to you. And so Betty, for you, how did you come to choose resident ownership? Where did you hear about it? What did you think about it? How did you guys come to the conclusion that resident ownership was something you wanted to do?
Kevin came to one of our meetings and said, how would you feel about owning your own park? And I still remember to this day, and I told Kevin, I said, well, that's a dream come true. How in the world could we ever do that? We don't have any money. And Kevin proceeded to explain to us and work with us and help us become a resident-owned manufactured home park, which we are Minnesota's second and largest.
That's great.
And I don't want to live anywhere else. I like my little apartment.
Yeah.
All met with all the community. Everybody was very scared, letters in hand, what's going to happen to us, please don't let anybody buy us. They presented the co-op situation for all of us. A lot of people weren't on board at the time. They were very fearful. Who's coming up with money? Is that going to come out of my pocket? I don't want to be part of a mortgage type thing. But a year and a half later, here we are, we're a co-op. And I think it's going very well. I wouldn't have chose any other way. This gives me a chance to be not even a shareholder, so to speak, of what is beneath me, and as well as the home that I live in, and be able to meet my community as a whole.
At the time I had a huge house, I was wealthy, and I needed a life change, and I had a fork in the road, and I had nowhere to go. My mobile home was all I could afford, and I got the bank at the time would give divorced women a one-time loan in order to get into a home somehow, some way. And that's how I got into my home 16 years ago. I don't want to leave. I'm 5 miles from everything you can totally imagine. And I don't want anybody else to have to leave if they can't. Because this is all we can afford a lot of times.
That's great.
It's something that is just emotional.
I love it, and I hope that more of the communities can become this. It's huge, and it's welcoming, and it's worth it.
That's great.
And it is just incredibly inspiring. And when you go in and sit in people's living rooms and hear their stories and know how hard people have worked to buy that, quote, mobile home, that home that so many people look down upon, people who don't visit mobile home parks or manufacturing communities, and know how hard people are willing to work for it and what it means to people and how important it is in terms of affordable housing resource. How can you not go to bat for these communities and for these community leaders? So I applaud the two of you. Thank you so much for that.